Okay, we're going to get started. Everybody please stand and face the flag, please.
To the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land that my fathers died, land of the pilgrims pride, from every mountain-side, that freedom we.
Please remain standing. Thank you all for being here today. Smoke is gone pretty much. All can breathe well again. So, only guest is our speaker, Paul, and he'll be up here to talk, introduce himself and talk about what he's here for today. And so let's see, where's the, somebody actually did it. Thank you. Let's see. I'm going to let our speaker hold it. Oh, yeah. All right. There it is. All right. 942. You?
That's me. She jumped up out of that.
Who? Her? Yes. The $5 for having the right ticket. Now we're looking for the 4 of clubs. You know what that looks like? Nope, 7 of hearts. All right, little 5 of rose.
Yes.
They're bigger.
Do we know what the 50-50 is for?
I don't know. Jenny, do you have any idea what the 50-50, the amount in that is?
$56.
56, okay. Yeah, it was just one the other day, or a couple weeks ago, so. All right. So who's happy today? Yeah. You have a brag, okay.
Happy brag.
Happy brag.
This Sunday, a couple of my team members and I went down to a shooting tournament in Hauser, and the 3 of our youth actually won some of the big events. One of them won the big 50 bird with hitting 50 out of 50. His brother took 2nd place with 49 out of 50. And then I won the Super Annie getting $52.
The big 50 was worth over $1,000 that this kid won, and he won out like over professional shooters. So yeah, that was a big deal.
Wow.
Jenny.
I'm happy. We had a near catastrophe. My grandson came up and wanted a Oreo cookie, which was carrot cake cream or something.
Oh my.
And anyway, he was only 4 years old, and he came back and he threw up, and then he couldn't breathe.
Oh no.
Rushed him to the hospital, and the hospital took very good care of him, and he came back going, I'm fine.
I want another cookie. Yeah.
I have some of those Oreo cookies if anyone would like some.
What's the allergic?
You must, they said that he had an allergic reaction to something.
All right, anybody else? Ron.
I'll get my dollar.
Yeah, we do.
Where's my hand? A good friend of mine has had a good friend of his and family up bow hunting for elk for the last 10 days, and they left today, and I'm happy. I don't mean that. I'm exhausted. It's fun enough.
Were you the outfitter?
Hunting on your own. I was assisting. And we They came from Maryland, so.
Oh, okay. Kathy?
I am happy that we have such gorgeous weather right now. There's no
Yeah.
Except for the control burn, the lake issues, it's control burn down there on Bear Lake. But just the beauty of it all, and just getting chilly, and the leaves are turning and stuff, just love it.
Great. Awesome. Linda?
I was gonna say the weather also, and the fact that if the weather people know anything about what they're talking about, we might have rain later on.
Well, that's a good weather.
That's a really good thing.
Rain is good
But
weather.
we wanna know, I mean, we won't know until it happens.
Right. Marcia?
I'm Renee, happy Rotary.
Awesome. Linda?
I'm happy because our community orchestra, we were able to meet together for the first time since March, this past Thursday evening in the middle school band room. And we had about half of our members that came.
Oh, awesome.
So we have members that come from Creston, and of course they weren't able to make it. We have members from Libby, Montana, and Troy, and only one of them out of about 10 or 11 came.
Oh.
But the people from Bonners Ferry, and Boundary County were pretty much all there, and they sounded good.
Awesome.
So-
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm happy
That is
about that.
happy. Nick?
Happy with summer season winding down and get a chance to come on vacation in a few years.
Awesome.
Yay.
Cool. Anybody else? Kristen, do you have one?
Do I have one?
I don't know. Do you have one?
Yeah, I'm happy that it is fall, officially fall.
Which means hunting season.
And I have one. I'm happy that the youth waterfowl hunt is this weekend.
Yeah.
And Melanie and I are going out to try to shoot some. And this is actually her last one that she'll be able to go on with me. We've been going since she was 9 years old. So I'm happy that I get to take her on that. So. All right. So now comes Dave's moment.
Fines.
Fines.
I thought you made me. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, Ron. You can find me because I messed it up.
No, I'm finding you because I don't have any, but I'm sure you.
Oh.
And now you're gonna go and scare all the ducks and geese away. And any left in the whole county.
I thought I'd come down to your river property.
Still gonna cost you a lot.
Okay, all right.
Dave for making me do the fine. Let's see. You were the one that Kathy likes the fall weather, right? Frankly, I did not get to sit in the river and drink beer enough this season. So everybody up, Christy, you two here hurrying fall in when I could be sitting in the river drinking beer. It's gonna cost you each $1.
I think you have to
Charlene?
buy us a couple of beers.
You can join me. It's gonna be a little chilly now. Charlene, have you noticed how good your business is looking up there on the South Hills?
It is beautiful.
It is gorgeous. And with that, I assume that you are just making so much money.
But I agree with you about summer going away, especially not having enough time in the water.
Okay, then I'll forgive you that.
I'll still pay it.
Marcia, did you send me an email?
No.
I can tell you that too.
And got it.
Yeah, I got one
I'll
too.
do that one.
I changed it all, we sent about 14 of them out. Who said, I don't know who they are. Scam.
All right.
So you were lucky.
I gave them $10,000. They said that it was for
You did
you.
not.
I didn't have that. I didn't have that. You said that.
For an emergency.
Oh,
$1 to you, and $9,999 comes to me. Okay.
All right, is that it?
Mhm.
Thank you very much.
Just like that.
Marsh email there, general, I've been receiving a lot of spam emails, and they make it look like I've gotten some from attorneys and other title companies, and it's really
I
scary.
keep getting some from Dottie Gray.
Yes, they've been infected for a long time.
Yeah, we get those often.
Dave and Dottie.
So, Paul, you've been a Rotarian before.
Yeah, that reminds me. Paul's a Rotarian, but not currently. No, not currently.
So is that
Okay, then that's a done.
Anyway, this money that we do, this is all done in fund, and it's all to go towards our scholarship funds. And, you know, naturally, that's not how we earn all of the money for the scholarships, because we give around $15,000 a year away to scholarships. So, but we have other things, including the calendars that we just got, and we're gonna start selling those off and raising money for the scholarships for this next spring, so. And, well, that brings me to the announcement that our calendars are back there, so make sure you grab your packet. What else?
So we have enough members this year that if everybody will do their part and sell their 10 calendars, nobody will have to go sit in the booth. So if we can just sell our 10 calendars, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
It wouldn't put the burden on any one person. The whole membership would carry it.
So, cool. All right. I'll get to the rest of the announcements after our speaker. So Paul Carelli is here. He is going to tell us about himself and how he ended up in Idaho and working for Quest Aircraft.
So I need to reshare.
So what do we got?
Okay. Well, thanks, Ron and Chrissy, for inviting me out here. I have been a Rotarian before. Back, I guess it was in 2015. In my Navy career, I was asked to be a part of the Rotary because the command that I had at the time was one of the largest employers of the town that I was in, Meridian, Mississippi. And Meridian, Mississippi is not big. It is bigger than Bonners Ferry, but it's not that large. So it was a great organization. I was a part of it for about 3 years, and then that was really at the time I retired out of the military and moved from Virginia out here to Bonners Ferry. So kind of circular discussion. I moved here in 2017. I was a pilot in the military, as you can see there, for about 26 years. And then I saw that the airlines were hiring like gangbusters. And so I got hired by Delta Airlines right out of the military, but Quest Aircraft Company was also looking for a director of flight operations. So I thought, wow, would that be pretty awesome to go live in North Idaho? And my wife's like, where? Yeah. So we've moved 13 times in our Navy career. And she said, you promised this was the last one. And I said, well, this is the last one, I hope. So fast forward to November of 2017, I get hired here. And then I was here by myself for about 8 months while my son finished school out there in Virginia. And then, as Ron and Christy know, we have a ton of animals. So it was like Noah's Ark coming across the United States. We had 5 horses and goats and ducks and dogs and cats. And so it was literally a road show trying to get all those animals across the country. And it was probably the longest move we've ever made. So we went from Orange, Virginia, which is near Fredericksburg, all the way up to Bonners Ferry. So that's how I got here, and that's really how I got into the Rotary. But starting from the beginning there, I joined the Navy actually in 1992, and let's see if I can get this thing to switch on it. Yep, real quick, just a timeline, and I'm getting to a point of how I got here. So I started out in the Navy. My father-in-law was a Navy pilot, and I thought I'd follow in his footsteps. I was actually a deputy sheriff at the time, and my dad was a cop down in the Bay Area. And so he was a little bit disappointed that he said, you're really going to leave the sheriff's department? I said, yeah, I'm going to go fly. So I'm just wearing a different badge. That's all. So my brother was a cop. My dad's a cop. And my dad just moved up here. Shocking, right? From California. All the cops coming up from California escaping. But he just moved up here to Moyer Springs literally yesterday. So he took possession of his house yesterday. So I got everybody coming up here. So don't judge me by the school. I got my commission at UC Berkeley in 1992. Believe me, I was the real individual there. And then from there, I got selected to go to flight training. So my wife and I moved out to Pensacola, Florida in 1992 to go do some pre-flight training. And then from there, I did well enough to get into jets. Went to Meridian, Mississippi to go fly jets for a while. And then after I finished with my training there, I got my wings. And then we moved right out to San Diego, California. Did my training in California for about a year and then went out to Japan. Spent 4 years in Japan, much to my wife's dismay. And then we moved back to San Diego for a while. Stayed in San Diego for about 6 years. Did a couple of tours there. Moved out to Rhode Island. Went through War College in Rhode Island and then came back to Tennessee. Worked at the Bureau of Personnel in Tennessee. That basically they give orders out to the sailors. And then from there, I got command of an F-18 squadron. And then from there, I went to the Pentagon. And then from the Pentagon to Meridian, Mississippi, and then here. So 26 years, real quick, I'll just kind of tell you how all that works. So in order to be a pilot in the military, you have to have a commission, and which means that you have to have a degree. So I got my degree. There are a few routes that you can get your commission. You can either go through the Naval Academy, or you can go through ROTC, Reserve Officer Training Corps, or you can go through Officer Candidate School, all of which require you to have a 4-year degree. And it's preferred that you actually have a science or math degree in that. I never really used it that much while I was flying, but that's what they prefer. So, aviation pre-flight indoctrination. We go down to Pensacola, Florida, where they torture you for a good portion of time. Yes, they drag you in a parachute across the water. They make you survive in the open ocean with jellyfish and all kinds of fun stuff swimming underneath you. And then they put you inside this helicopter, which I have a really adverse reaction to helicopters, because they train you in this device. They call it the dunker. And basically what it is, it's a helicopter that 12 people get into, and they blindfold you with these goggles, and they put all your flight gear on. They strap you in, and they drop it, and it slowly sinks to the bottom of a 15-foot pool and then rolls upside down. And then you got to wait for all the motion to stop and escape out of this thing. But you're blindfolded, and you got 12 other guys freaking out in there as well, trying to get out of that device. So that's what you have to go through. And actually, if you'd be surprised, a lot of people fail out of flight training right there, because it is a pretty unique experience, I can say. It'd be like going off the bridge in a car upside down in the river. I mean, it doesn't sound too appealing, and it's not. The water's not warm either. So, but they do have safety divers watching you down there. So also there's an academic portion of it. And academic is aerodynamics, engines, and navigation. And you have to pass. It's all very, very competitive, all designed to about a 35% washout rate. So, there's 100 of you start, 65 are going to end up going through and making it. So that's the first step. You pass that, you go to pre-flight. In the very first airplane that I did, I flew this T-34. Now, there are a lot of people who have never even been in an airplane. And yet this is the first airplane that they get. It's a complex high-performance aircraft. It's a turboprop aircraft like we build down here at Quest, and it's got retractable gear. And there are kids that have 0 hours in an airplane, which is really remarkable because the Navy's program is so structured and so well designed that they can take somebody off the street and train them to fly an airplane pretty darn quick. We get 75 hours in this airplane before we go off to our next platform. And this airplane here is the primary airplane, but depending on how well you do in that airplane is where you'll go next. So if you're the number one guy, you can go to jets or whatever you desire. Usually if you don't do so well in this aircraft, they'll send you to something that moves a little bit slower so you can think a little bit quicker in the airplane. So you got jets, propellers like your P-3s, and helicopters. Those are your 3 paths that you can go out of that. I was fortunate enough, I get to go to start my strike training in the T-2 Buckeye, which looks like a big guppy, but it's an aircraft carrier-borne jet. So this is the first time that we get to land on an aircraft carrier. So we go through another 60 hours in this airplane before we start landing on aircraft carriers, which is kind of crazy if you think you're taking a kid off the street and giving him about 100 hours in an airplane, and now he's landing on an aircraft carrier. It's a pretty selective process as well, and it's absolutely terrifying the first time that you do it, because all the other aircraft you train in, you usually have an instructor sitting in the back seat. When you go to the aircraft carrier for the first time, there's no instructor that's crazy enough to get in your back seat. So they absolutely, you're on your own. So we're landing out there all by ourselves. So you get your first arrested landing and your first catapult shot too, which is actually probably more fun than the landing itself. So if you do well and you pass your carrier qualifications in that Buckeye, which is the older aircraft, then they send you to the TA-4. This is a really high performance aircraft. The Blue Angels flew this plane for a long time. It's a really fast airplane. And it's got the highest roll rate of any aircraft in the world at the time, 720 degrees per second, which is dizzying. You can't really comprehend how fast that is. Yet they stick these new kids in these things, and they're going out to the carrier for the first time as well. Don't get to do it at night yet, but you have to pass this in order to get your wings. So we do things here like you do formation flying and bomb dropping, and this thing actually has a gun on it, a 20 millimeter gun on it. So you have to do gunnery in it. So you're going through a little bit more advanced tactics, getting you prepared to fly aircraft in the fleet. So all said and done, I spent probably 2 years in both those aircraft, the one jet before and a year in this one. And then you get to go to your first fleet squadron. So in 1995, I get my wings and I get to go out to the first fleet squadron. This squadron is in San Diego, California. I got to spend about a year training in this aircraft. You're actually dropping real bombs and executing real world missions in this aircraft. And once you qualify in this airplane, then you go to your first fleet, and now you're going to go out to an aircraft carrier. The thing with this is not a blank picture. This is the first night carrier landing that you're going to do in this airplane. So it's the first time we've been to the carrier before. We've done 20 landings, but now we're going to do them at night. And that's what you see. That's at probably a half a mile behind the aircraft carrier, and that's your landing area. So it is as dark as the inside of a football. It is really, really dark, and there's no horizon, and it's very disorienting. So that's what you get to do, and if you pass that, God bless America, you get to go out to the fleet. So my first fleet tour was in Atsugi, Japan. So I took my brand new baby girl and my wife, and we moved all the way across Japan, and they stuck us out on the Japanese economy with absolutely nobody. We knew nobody, living in a Japanese housing, and it's a different world. I mean, their house, it's as cold there as it is here, yet their walls are paper thin. And your shampoo freezes in the shower, your toilet bowl freezes. I mean, it's just insane how it's just a different world. So my wife is really happy that she's following me now across the world. So we spent 4 years there, and of the 46 months that we were there, I was actually in country 6 months. So I was gone for 40 months on deployment. We went to Iraq about a half a dozen times on deployments. And so I rarely got to see the countryside. And my wife still to this day lets me know about it. Yes, I can imagine. Yep, I already did that. Let's see here. Okay, so after that tour, it was a great tour out there, really, for the career. They sent me back to be an instructor back in San Diego, California, which my wife was very happy about. So we moved back to San Diego, California in 1999, and I get to be an instructor at the squadron in San Diego. Great. I was an instructor there for about a year, and I was a landing signals officer. So what do? That's these guys right here. These guys are pilots. They stand on the back of the carrier, and they talk to the aircraft that are landing. So you can imagine that he's in phase with the deck when it's moving. So that was my job as an instructor at the squadron in San Diego. From that, I got picked to be a CAG LSO. What that is now I'm in charge of the air wing of all the aircraft, and I have a team of guys that we help land airplanes on the aircraft carrier. All airplanes, not just Hornets, not just S3s, but you know, your E2s, your C2s, all the different aircraft, day and night, any kind of weather. And we were tested because in 1999, I started. What happened in 2001? 9/11, right? So I'm out on a carrier on September 10th, and it's midnight. I'm getting ready to launch off the aircraft carrier. I have a gear problem. I tell them, you know what? Just pin the gear, put pins in it, and we're going to launch me off anyway. I'm like, I got to get back to San Diego. Land at San Diego at 1 o'clock in the morning. I go home. I'm sleeping in because I've been working for a week solid, late at night. My wife wakes me up, tells me about 9/11. And that carrier that I had left the night before stayed out for 3 months protecting the coast. I would have been stuck out there that whole time. However, we did do some other things to patrol the coast in our own aircraft without having to be on the carrier, thankfully. So this job I did from 2002 to 2004. Here's one sea story. So we get deployed after 9/11. We go to Iraq. It's 2002, and it's November. We started the first strikes in Iraq on March 20th, 2003. And this is the sandstorm that hit us during the war. It was the third night of the war. Visibility, yes, ma'am. Oh, yep. Visibility was pretty much zero. I landed on the aircraft carrier. This is the tower of the aircraft carrier, and I'm over the landing area. You can barely see it. I tell the boss, I said, because I was a CAG LSO at the time, I said, hey, Admiral, we do not need to be flying. I can't even see the tower. The LSOs were having to talk the planes down. Other instruments didn't matter. They were just having to listen for them, land them on the carrier. Well, that night, we were told that the Iraqis were going to attack some of our Marines in country, so we had to launch. There was no airborne gas. There was no place to land, only the carrier. So, oh, by the way, what was causing the sandstorm were these massive thunderstorms coming across Iran. So we launched 33 airplanes that night, and I was one of the LSOs controlling the aircraft that were supposed to come back. And so my partner and I, and lightning had struck our aircraft carrier and knocked out our visual landing aid. So you can't see to land on the carrier. So we had this massive casualty on the ship. We had 33 airplanes airborne, so we had to rig this manually operated visual landing aid system to land these aircraft. And so the aircraft did their mission. They came back. The aircraft carrier requires airborne gas. They require air tankers to be refueling planes after their missions. There was none of that because there was nobody else airborne. So all these planes were low state, meaning that they didn't have much gas to land on the aircraft carrier. So bottom line is we had to land these guys. Basically, we had to do talk downs. So we had them turn their taxi lights on so we could see them, so we can judge how high they were to land on the aircraft carrier. We had a guy come back with one engine. Another guy came back with no radome on the front of his aircraft. And the other guy another Tomcat came back with no front windscreen. So he could not see out his airplane, and we had to land all those guys. Thank God we landed every single one of these guys without incident. And when we were debriefing them that night on their passes, it was that quiet. Because everybody was like, oh my God, thank God we're back. So one of the worst nights of my career that night, but one of the best because we got everybody back. After that, I needed a decompression, so they sent me to the Naval War College to get my master's degree out there in beautiful Rhode Island. It's 10 months of camping is what they call it. It's on the Narragansett Bay, which is pretty fantastic. Your housing is right on the water, and it's a lot of so it's a master's degree in 10 months. That's the Navy way, right? 1,200 pages a day of reading, and I'm not a fast reader. I write with a crayon, I swear it, but it was a great experience. So my wife got to decompress a little bit. We got to enjoy sunny Rhode Island. From there, did I go? Oh, from there, I went to the Bureau to give handout orders. This is where they say that you have your tongue sliced in half because we don't lie, the truth just changes. And so we hand out orders to people, and they don't like where they go sometimes, but I got to spend about a year there. If you pick up that I'm moving almost every year, year and a half, that's a lot of movement with the family and especially with all the animals that we have too, because we've had horses for quite some time. Then I got selected for command of F-18 squadron. So I moved out to Lemoore, California, go through the Top Gun school, went through that school for about a year, got to lead these guys here in Afghanistan. We did 2 tours in Afghanistan and 1 in Iraq, and find a bunch of gentlemen right there. Great news is every one of them still with us, which is a great thing. So I got to spend a good amount of time over in Iraq. I have spent more time there probably than with my family. I left in 2008, and by the time I was done, I hadn't seen my son really in about 7, 8 years. That was, time away. It was ridiculous. But we were busy. So we did Operation Enduring Freedom. So we took our aircraft and we would do 8-hour missions. We'd fly into Afghanistan, we'd tank, we go do our mission, come back and tank, go do our mission, come back and tank, and then go back to the aircraft carrier. You have to sit in a cockpit for over 7 hours, and all you have are these little bags that you can, pee in if you had to. And that's our lunch and dinner right there. So the aircraft carrier would provide a bunch of snacks for us, and we would just load up in the airplane. And then on the way out, you actually got to eat. But a lot of the stuff we did out there was really super busy, and time went by really fast. And that's actually an American base out there that we were protecting, and we spent a lot of time watching over our guys down there. So we did a lot of work. Sea story 2. This is by far the worst night that I've had in my career. So sandstorms are a real thing out there. That picture on the left is actually what I could see outside my cockpit in the daytime, which was nothing. And so it was actually a late day mission going into night. I was the commanding officer of the squadron. I had a brand new kid on my wing that night. He had never been in combat at night before. And we had to get gas. And so we go in, it was dark, but it was also zero visibility. And the clouds and the dust were all the way up to about 50,000 feet. The tankers usually hang around about 25,000 feet. And so we were coming off of a mission. We had to go get gas. And I'm worried because this is his first night mission, and he has to get gas. We're both down to a very low fuel state. Kandahar was one of our divert bases. It had just gotten hit by rocket attacks, so they were closed. So all the little Swiss cheese holes are lining up for a bad event to happen. I go up to 25,000 feet. I'm dragging him. He's flying formation on night vision goggles in the bad weather on my wing, and we go for 160 miles to try to find this tanker. I am literally 1/10 of a mile from the tanker, and I can't see it. And that's close. So I push in as close as I feel comfortable with without hitting this KC-135 that's in the air. And I could barely see a light come on from his wingtip. And then I was able to get in and get us both in close enough to where we can. This is what the tanker looks like in a clear air. And it didn't look like that. It was really, really dim. And the basket, which is what we refuel off of, looks like a big badminton, a shuttlecock. You plug into that. It was moving all over the place, bouncing all over the sky. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this poor kid is going to have to try to get in. So I got my gas, a little bit of it, not all of it. Usually get about 9,000 pounds of fuel. I only got about 2,000. I pull over to the other side. and I let him. He fights getting into this basket for probably 15, 20 minutes. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm getting so low on gas. I got nowhere to go. And if he gets overzealous and hits that basket and it's broke, nobody can get anything. But thank God that thing, he got in, he got his gas, he stayed in there, and he was able to pull out, and I could get my gas. And I said, you know what, we're done. We went back to the carrier that night, and I just prayed to God, said, thank you for getting me through that, because as the commanding officer of the squadron, I didn't want to lose anybody, and I didn't want to get fired either. So we made it through. That was the worst night of my career. So then I finished with that command. I get to go to the Pentagon. I go to the Pentagon for 3 long years. I work on the joint staff there. My job was really to support the president and keep him safe. My job was in a really bad day is to make sure that he was evacuated and that we could ensure the enduring constitutional government. That was our job. That no matter who was president, the successors were available to take over in case he died. That was our job. So I did that for quite a while. And then after that, I get to go to command my last command, which is in Meridian, Mississippi, come full circle, student in Meridian, Mississippi. Now I come back as the Commodore, the boss in Meridian, Mississippi. And I get to train these young guys to go fly it on the carrier. It was an absolutely great tour. It was so much fun. I had 3 squadrons out there. We had 85 airplanes, and we got to treat these young kids, super smart kids, how to fight an airplane and go land on a carrier. It was an absolutely great experience. An experience that I absolutely cherish because it got me here, right? So my whole career, I've always wanted, I mean, I grew up in the mountains. I've always wanted to come back to the mountains. And so, like I said, I found out about this job from my buddy who works at Dyer. We call it Dyer now, Kodiak Aircraft. He was the director of engineering. He was also an F-18 guy. We were friends in the Navy. We stayed friends. He said, you need to come out here and work for Kodiak. And so I came out, worked with Kodiak. They let me take a look at their flight operations. I revamped their flight operations, and then they asked me if I would do their production. So I started working the production floor, which I love because I love working with the folks, right? The leadership piece is what I really, really enjoy. Flying an airplane is something I do, but I'm passionate about the leadership piece. So I helped them gain some efficiencies in the production process, and then in the interim, the company that owned us before decided, you know what, we're going to get out of aviation, and then thank God, Dyer, the company that builds the airplane on your right there, the TBM, said, you know what, you guys are a good organization. We're gonna take a look at mine. And we really, thank God they bought us, because I think it would be a different story if they hadn't right now. So now, if anybody's ever worried about, are these jobs staying in Sandpoint? They absolutely are. Why? Well, because the aircraft that is built, the Kodiak, its production certificate is for Sandpoint, Idaho. It cannot go anywhere else. So that plane is going to stay there. As a matter of fact, Dyer is looking at taking this airplane and producing parts of it here, because it's more efficient to do it here in the U.S. than it is in France. So they flew me out to France this last February. I went to go look at their production process. They asked me to take a look at what they're doing and could I implement some of the leadership stuff that I did there over in France. And so they've been a very, very good parent company. So we're really excited to have them. And my wife and I are extremely excited to be in Bonners Ferry. I mean, this is what we do, right? We're outdoor people. We love the country and the environment. We love the people up here. And we've really, really enjoyed it. I don't know if you guys knew who Jim Hollis was.
No.
Yep, I'm at his house. And Jim and I are fast friends. I still talk to him. As a matter of fact, his birthday was just the other day. Yes, ma'am.
neighbor.
You're my neighbor?
Yeah.
Where?
When I go up the cemetery road, which is probably really bad.
100 times. Yeah.
I'm the farmer.
Jenny Festival.
Oh, Alan's.
Right. Well, that's what I know him as.
Well, I've never met you, but Alan, yeah, Alan's come up a bunch of times. No kidding.
So Jim was Rotarian here until he moved.
No kidding. Yeah, I love Jim. Jim and Lynch, they're awesome people.
Please say hi to Jim.
I will, absolutely. I speak to him weekly at least. Yeah, hey, what's this do on the house? So, but anyway, that's how I ended up here, and that's how I ended up, being in the Rotary Club. And so I'm looking to get back into it while we're up here. And I hope you enjoyed the I Love Me show.
You guys were good about getting this head count sheet filled out for the off-site meeting at North Idaho Collision Repair next week on Tuesday. So if any of you out there want to go, we have to have you contact us so that we can get you on the list. We need a head count. Food's going to be Two Tones is doing the food for us, so it should be yummy. And the other thing, let's see, we still are going to do our camping cleanup at the park. You don't have to camp to do it, but we need some help out there. It'll be fun. It'll be a fun weekend. The other thing is, Christy, there's something with the hospice roses.
Yes, so I sent an email to everybody. Hospice is doing their $20 for a dozen roses fundraiser that they do every year. They do this fundraising for sending kids to camp and for bringing families in to visit their family that is on hospice, and also to cover just little costs that hospice doesn't cover. So they do this fundraising every year. Usually a representative comes to our club and has their little forms and has you pay $20 to get that dozen roses to raise those funds. But this year they've asked me to collect any monies and names. If you want to participate, it costs $20. You get a pickup date. You go get dozen beautiful roses. They're usually on stem, really nice roses, and it helps out a good cause. So if you want to participate in that, let me know. Let me collect the money for them, and then I'll just, that way they only have one contact and they're not here. They're trying to do it all, not coming this year. So I sent an email if there's you need any more information.
So that weekend, the freedom weekend is October 2nd through the 4th. Other than that, does anybody else have any announcements that they announce? With that, we are adjourned.